Right.
But you
And
know,
also, open space is for the common purpose of residents or the public. At least it's open space. Common land is just saying that the land is owned by everybody in that development.
Exactly.
And open space is just defining what's on that land. It's not defining ownership.
Common land is a way of defining what you cannot personally make changes to without permission from the association. Open space has a whole different connotation.
So for example, I think the word accessory is important in the description of open space. You take the area at Cameron Drive, they've got a water pump house area. That's on open space probably, but that's just an accessory building important for their water.
It's actually on the common land.
Okay. But I wonder if it was counted as part of open space. It might have been.
Because we have, for the whole parcel that was developed, we've got the separate lots, which whoever lives on that house owns, and then all of the land around those lots. Because you got a road going through and the lots are all on the road, and then the land around it is common land. And the pump house is on that common land, and it is the responsibility of the association for taking care of the pump house and the water.
When it originally got approved, that may have been part of the 25% of the land being open space.
Correct.
Could have been.
Could have been.
And that would have been acceptable, because it was just an accessory structure. It wasn't a structure being used for, community meetings or something.
No, it was a
I think
structure
that- I think the word accessory is important there.
so,
for the use of everybody in the development.
so I was reading, but so common land is the land between buildings. Open space is the land dedicated to the use of everybody within a group and possibly the public. Is that correct?
I think so.
All right, well, common land, go back to the definition of common land. Means land in the cluster development created by reducing individual lot sizes or on parcels with attached units. All land not occupied by units, roadways, or other allowed structures to which access is provided for the residents of, and possibly for citizens of the town or the public at large, and which is owned by either the homeowners association, a municipal body, or a private non-profit agents for the purpose of preserving open space. So we've got Chinese menu there for common land.
And in open space also, in addition to talking about accessory buildings or structures and improvements, it then talks about that it shall include the commercial recreational uses existing. So those uses might be cross-country skiing, it might be tennis, might be things like that, but it might not, I would assume, it wouldn't be a structure in the open
Wouldn't
space.
be a skating rink or,
Yeah,
what would consider
it might be a
closed.
pool if it were colder temperatures. It could be a pond for skating.
Right, but not a
Not a
rink
structure.
with a roof
No.
over it.
So are we trying here to renegotiate how we define common land and open space? Or are we simply trying to restate that we have a different
I think we should at
requirement?
some point in the future redefine.
Well, I mean, if you want to do this, this is a lot of circular argument that I'm hearing here. And it seems to me that it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to have two different definitions based on one being affordable housing and one not. So
Great.
if you want to make changes to that, it has nothing to do with affordable housing and what we're trying to accomplish, then let's have a whole structure on that. Let's get attorneys in here and let's talk about it. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Great.
Well, yes, it does, because we're trying to understand what common land and open space are.
Yeah, but we've already defined it in terms of the one variety.
We haven't
And,
defined it. We
well,
have two definitions that.
We
don't-
do, but are we trying in this process to
No, I agree, we need to funnel things down, but this discussion needed to happen because we have two terms that we don't have good definitions for, so we need to understand what those terms meant to the best of our ability,
Okay.
so we can then move forward.
All right, so what you're suggesting is that we don't have an understanding, or you have an understanding?
I would say just use the same words and that, and this is 9.2.6, but actually it is the present 8.
Yeah, that'll be, I'll fix those numbers.
Okay, the present 8, which is talking about open space requirements in cluster, which now says, open space and development shall be common land amounting to a minimum of 50%. And so we should, all I would say is that developments created in affordable workshops shall be in compliance with section R, only required to set as a minimum 25% of the parcel as common space, common land. Because that's what it says in the above.
Right. I think I would leave the wording as it is currently.
Right, and just use the same wording.
Use the same wording, and then at some future
I think
point,
that's all I was trying
we
to
ought
say.
to look at redefining common land and open space, and then make a housekeeping change to this so that it's clearer.
What would be the housekeeping change?
But in the future, we need to
Oh.
redefine common land and open space so that
Okay.
the two are
Distinct.
distinct.
Right. So Sarah,
Or
instead of,
create one thing that means, that's both. I mean, the overlap between them seems a lot more than not.
okay,
Last line in blue, instead of saying open space, say common land, and then you're consistent.
but it would begin with the word developments.
Yes.
Okay,
So only thing I would change in what you had written was common land,
okay.
because it says shall be, what's there already says shall be common land.
Are we going on to section 10? We could start with the one Sarah said, is that what you're figuring?
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is the one, the two, 5-page piece put out by Julie. So you see that most of it doesn't have any changes whatsoever. Sarah took it right from,
The one that was sent to us that Steve Whitman had marked up, I just pulled that because I didn't want to retype everything. And he had typed, and I was checking against the present, and it was all there. And then where he was suggesting changes with the alternative 1 and alternative 2, he was trying to keep it in the same order. And I was getting all confused as to what was 1 and what was 2. And so what I tried to do, and hopefully I succeeded, was to look at all of those items as to the requirements for the lot and the incentives that we were offering, which ones applied to both alternatives, and which ones applied just to the cluster alternative, and which ones applied just to the single lot alternative. And then try to do it, make it clear with the indents. And then because I was using the, what was already there by Steve, my indents got a little screwed up, but that could easily be fixed.
oh yeah,
So,
Well, I was going to ask to consider as we go through. To me, the alternative 1, alternative 2 sort of format is sort of a little confusing. And as you go through it, you need to keep going back to look at what was alternative alternative one, what was alternative two? Yes, you referring back a couple
Right,
of.
that bothered me too, and so I tried to just add the words alternative one, which is as part of a cluster or multifamily development, and then,
But I just wonder, as we go through it, whether wherever we say alternative one, can we just say cluster development? Or wherever we say alternative two, can we just say single lot development?
right,
And get rid of that whole alternative wording.
I see what you're
But,
saying.
but I think as we go through it, we'll know better.
Yeah, that was my point on the comment, that whether or not we really needed to have these or not,
as an alternative one too.
and as opposed to incorporating. I'm not really good at wanting to point back at something else.
So we may want to just look at the changes to, that we're talking about. And so that would be, and I use italics and cross-throughs because of photocopying on black and white. No idea what's going to happen.
So, for example, 10.4.2, I think we could either just drop the word alternative one or put under section 8.
Or in compliance with section 8 or
Or
something.
Yeah.
to section 8. I mean, we may get further into it, we might, oh, maybe the alternative thing does work better, but assuming that, you know.
Well, we can still have up in the procedures there on page 2, where it says we can do it in 2 ways, and you may not have alternative 1 or alternative 2, but to say, you know, just drop those words and have, you know, the creation of it as part of the cluster, or creation
Yeah.
as, through the creation of the lots.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that looks fine.
And it's dot points and not alternative.
Okay, so let's see if that works.
Next.
And then I was reordering some of the sections that were in the workforce housing criteria already. I wasn't getting rid of them, I was just putting them someplace else, which is why I put the little direction in brackets there.
Yeah.
So now you put this 4.1 is telling the requirements to be a workforce housing as far as the size and the deed restrictions.
Right, for all types of units.
Okay, so that's going to be for any unit where, whichever way. Okay, so then 4.2 gets stuck in where it's affordable units created within a cluster multiplier, or how do you want to say it, in compliance with section 8.
Right.
So instead of under alternative 1, we're going to say in compliance with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that simplifies it a lot.
Okay, so those are the 2. With your 4 units, one's got to be low income and 20%.
Can I ask a question as far as that goes? So if somebody comes in and builds 4 units, only one of them has to be for low income, is that correct?
Right, at least one,
At least one. So what about the other 3 units?
ordinary units.
They can
Ordinary units, they could be for any amount of money.
Right.
That's the way this was written originally.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do is to tweak the original, and if that's not going to work right, then at a later date, we'll tweak the whole thing. I don't know.
Okay, now let's start to speaking from, has nothing to do with money or anything else. And it has to do with, how do you think those other 3 units feel about having somebody that's low income right next to them? Or how do you think that that person that can only afford that unit, snobbishness from the other people? I mean, have anybody considered that at all?
I think mixed income developments work great. There's lots of
Yeah.
examples of that.
They've proven to be really successful, and if the people who have the other units feel snobbish about it, they probably won't buy. If they're worried about having, somebody who earns $20,000 less a year than they do.
Well, it's going to be considerably less than 20,000. I mean, you're stopping somebody coming in and buying those other 3 units up and just using them as vacation rentals or whatever it is, or having...
All that's possible, yeah.
Okay.
We're not trying to legislate social interactions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to create affordable housing.
It's been
Well, I know
so
for-
successful in Massachusetts and a lot of, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, a lot of Vermont, a lot of places have used a very similar, identical type model.
Do you know how snobby people are in New Jersey and New York? Because I've grown up in those areas, okay?
Maybe Jackson people won't be snobby. Who can hope? I'm sure some of them are, but...
On the other hand, just take a look at Carter Notch Road. You've got every kind of house you can imagine on the street.
Uh-huh.
Everywhere from what looks like an ex-fishing camp to, castle.
Also, it's the one that grew, I like the one that grew. They built a room here, and then they built a room off of that.
Oh, we're gonna need a bathroom too. Let's build a
Right, and
bathroom too.
then we did,
I can think about that, but you just said that's a good viewpoint.
So we really have all kinds of folks, and, even speaking of Connecticut, in the community I was in, you could be on a road where the homes are very, very modest, to say the least, and they probably all satisfied for affordable housing. And then, because at the far end of the road, it's a newer development, the folks there all have, their kitchen is about the cost of the house down the street. And it's like,
One idea for larger developments is you create, sort of a very similar structure, and some of those structures are single-family homes, and others that look just the same are 3 or 4 apartments.
duplexes.
So you have consistency in terms of what the community looks like, but you still have...
Does the planning board have any restrictions on that? Do they have to come before us and say this is what the houses are going to look like and things like that? I mean, can we decide?
That would be site plan.
Yeah, site plan,
Yeah.
and we don't have any control over that.
No, the town has reviewed the opportunity for site
I know,
plan.
they saw it, I know that, a long time ago they have.
yes.
Yeah.
And that-
But I know that some kids now, we're talking about kids feel kind of, I don't know how to put this, because they don't live in a house that's gorgeous, feels kind of, sometimes for their whole life, that they feel left out. But that's a social issue. Anyway, continue. I just had a
No, I understand where you're coming from.
You're not wrong.
Oh, I didn't think I was wrong. I wasn't referring to the ones, I was just thinking how
You're not wrong.
how
Any
people,
comments or?
how people feel.
Why don't we become members of the planning board and not feel included in this?
Right, making the rules.
They make up their own things in their own heads, so it's just somehow most people feel.
God, if we had to legislate how people feel, my goodness, we'd have a hard time. I can't even control myself. Exactly.
So again, 10.6.2, we would just want to add in cluster developments to replace that.
Yeah.
And when we have this reviewed, Betsy's the one that's being passed over. Can you flag that 10.6.1 and ask if you knows what we were looking
What we were, what at the time?
at? What does that mean? What does 10.6?
Oh, yes, that's right, yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah. I wrote on there omit, because I thought maybe we decided we were going to omit that, but I guess we didn't. But I'll ask you,
Yeah, it sort of sounds
under
like,
permission.
it sort of sounds like the homes don't need to be clustered, but I'm not sure. The only reason that would make a difference is if it impacted common land, but I'm at a loss as to what.
Which one, where was it?
That's on page 4.
It's the first of the incentives.
Well, the government centers,
In a manner to minimize the environmental impact.
Because Peter's the town
Right,
attorney,
but
and it's all ready to go,
Oh, yeah, he has to
yeah.
put it
So,
anyway to put it in.
yeah,
the
interim
warrant.
things we can ask about, but when we're ready to send it,
But if you need help with wordings, you can call,
yeah.
Right, but that one,
the concordance.
I think, Peter made it involved in the original wording of that one, so
Okay.
maybe we can say, so I looked at my emails, I don't have emails that far back to see if maybe it's worth looking at the minutes
Yeah.
when we did that, see if there's any discussion. of that.
Okay.
When do we put this in?
2008 or 10, I forget.
10, okay, it says 10.
Okay.
Would it save town some money if you went to the town council and asked them to review this and get a different idea before you actually sent something to the lawyer? The town council?
Who's the town council? I thought that was Peter Mallia.
No, I meant the
government
council,
center.
the government center.
Oh,
In
that's-
general,
That's,
You mean municipal association?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they can answer our questions, I think.
right, just not in this
Or-
section.
And then, we get the whole body put together, and it would go to Peter Malloy,
right.
because he's gonna have to enforce it if any of it goes to court.
Right.
So we want him to put his okay on it too, the wording. and-
I just wanted to note, have Peter look at this section because he was involved in the writing of this section previously, and we don't seem to understand what it means anymore. So I don't think the New Hampshire Municipal Association would shed any light on that. That was something Peter.
Right, they would look at it and say, well, it looks okay to me.
What were you guys thinking when you wrote it?
And how come you don't know what it means if you wrote it?
Oh, we wrote it down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But we, not being on this group,
Yeah, okay,
we
don't know that.
do not know what
Okay.
we were thinking.
Okay.
And they may have copied it from some other town's ordinance. And maybe they knew what they meant, but we didn't.
Or that we at the time knew exactly what it meant.
It's an incentive, so we had some idea why it was an incentive, but we called it an incentive.
I mean, I seem to understand it, but you look at it and you kind of go,
But how do you understand it?
It's hard to understand, to tell you.
it seems to suggest that you may, a cluster suggests that you cluster, you put the structures within a fairly confined space.
Which is sort of what creates that open space.
Right, and what this suggests is that if, from an environmental perspective, you can argue that that would be inappropriate,
Mhm.
and that you can, when you have a particular site, it might be better not to do that. And then you may, if I'm reading this correctly, in those instances, the planning board can look at it and say, because of environmental reasons, what you're proposing, not cluster, but it's cluster development, is a better solution, even though it's not clustered. And that's what I understand this means.
So my two questions then would be, does that impact common land in some fashion? Because if you spread things out,
It may impact open
open
space
space.
as opposed to common land. Common land would still continue to be of equal amounts. but the open space may be less.
And then, if we're talking about, that to minimize environmental impact, should it be in this affordable housing thing, or should it just be in section 8 for any cluster development, whether or not it's affordable housing?
I would say that this should not be specific to affordable housing, yeah, I would agree on that. But I think that's what that means. If I'm reading
No,
this,
then that makes some sense.
if I'm reading this correctly, if I'm understanding the language of it.
But now, I think for the moment, we leave it there, but that might be something that we clean up at some point.
So basically on that page 4, it's mostly just the renumbering, and we're going to leave out at 10.6.2, we won't have the word for alternative 1. We'll say in compliance with section 8, cluster
To
house.
say for cluster housing with the
Okay.
development. So use that phrase. And then alternative 2 would be incentives for
Single lot subdivision.
creation of the affordable workhouse through the creation of a new lot.
Right.
And the new lot created for, incentives for the,
Yeah, the second one really isn't an incentive.
well, meaning that water supply
I mean,
built to state standards as opposed to,
oh, I'm sorry.
Section six.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, yeah. So, as an incentive, would it be worded if an applicant a water supply or septic system built to town to state standards would be acceptable?
as opposed to going by soils?
Right.
Or how do we?
Is that what that means, that we're?
That's what I thought we were doing.
Yes, as opposed to complying with section 6.
The way it's worded, I mean, it sort of means the same thing, but the way it's worded doesn't.
We should
sound-
word it the same way. I just pulled that from Whitman's, Whitman's thing. And what we have,
Would that become a legal problem if somebody, because we're allowing it to state specifications as opposed to town specifications, somebody comes in and wants to build a house and, just a house on a lot someplace, nothing to do with this, but saying, well, if you're going to allow it for state rules and regulations as opposed to town, how come I can't also use the
Because this
state's?
is for affordable.
Because we're creating an incentive for affordable housing.
But we're not going below state standards. We have more stringent standards than the state, and that's legal. We're allowed to do that.
Mhm.
And we're saying we'll reduce our standards,
Okay.
but not beyond
State requirement.
state level,
State still has
Yeah.
the authority.
to say,
Yeah, well, I get that part, but I was just saying, if somebody comes in and gets really angry and says, well, how come I
Do you,
can't?
do you want to do affordable housing?
Yeah.
Well,
We'd let them do
Right.
that. They could build an affordable unit if they wanted.
And you get, anytime you want to do just a house, why not just do a
maybe
house?
they can do an auxiliary.
Right, maybe all they want is a 2-bedroom house and they'd like to be able to qualify, if that's okay. So we could use that same wording that's
yes,
in the,
as above, yes, do
Yeah.
that.
okay.
Now, I know
I was going to suggest that.
So I know I'm going against the tide, but I feel 150 feet is not much teeth to this. I think I would advocate if we go to 125. I respect the concern you voiced, something that, we're letting things become more dense, but I just think that the number of times that this will actually be used is going to be very few. It's really not going to have a material impact on the density of the town, but only a few instances could have a significant impact on how it,
So you're talking about frontage up on the areas and dimensions?
yes.
Okay.
I just think that going from 200 to 150 is not much.
I agree.
And going to 125 would be significantly better, but I just don't think it's going to.
Can we talk about that? Because I've been wrestling with this one.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, I've been wrestling with this one since our conversation as to how, I took your input as being, hey,
Well, I've rethought that some too, because I'm thinking of a quarter acre lot, or half acre lot, I should say, which would be 100 by 200, and I'm thinking, well, maybe it could be, that was after our conversation last
we
week.
have like Jerry's comments were, 100, and then it's like, wow, and then maybe 150, and then 100, like, what's a good number when you think about it? For example, I don't know, just thinking about my own lot, I've got 287 feet of frontage, something like that. Most of us have some kind of frontage on a road. And if you, whether it's 125 or 150, I still can't carve something out of my frontage and allow for an additional piece of development and still leave 200 feet for myself. I'm only stuck with 87 feet. Any which way, it's not going to work. And I'm thinking, how many people have 300 plus or 350 plus feet of frontage on a road where they can carve out? And the reality of it is most of the lots that we have in town are already established as lots. And it's very rare that you have somebody that has more than a couple of 100, 300 feet for a frontage. And how often are you going to actually be able to carve out even 150 feet or 100 feet? 100 might be more likely, but even at 100 feet, how many places are you going to be able to carve that out? Or if somebody has an undeveloped lot that's 300 feet, are they really going to build 3 affordable housing units at 100 each? It's not going to happen. So, exactly, and my point is that it's like, no matter what we set this at, the level of development that might occur is going to be minimal, because there aren't that many situations other than maybe the Hardings to have, 1,000, 2,000 feet of frontage on carte blanche. They might decide that even though they live in a river plain, floodplain and all that, so they should put affordable housing up there. Right?
We might have difficulty with the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust. They might wish that we didn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Where I think it could make a difference is when someone is constructing a road to provide their frontage.
Right.
And now, because they have to build a shorter road, then for that developer, it may make financial sense. They may make as much money putting in an affordable lot because they have to construct a shorter road. So they're trading, less road construction for lower value for the lot. But in the end, if it doesn't wash, it becomes a lot closer to washing.
This has to come before the town anyway, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if anybody, people will accept.
and the flip side of that is again, at I don't know, 100 and a quarter, are you going to end up ever getting a lot that's going to be large enough to satisfy our requirements for septic and
Well, sure, because you can have 100 acre frontage and 100 acre lot setting off of it, and we have a lot of those. And that's a problem. That's a problem we do have, is we've got huge lots that don't have enough frontage to be subdivided.
And that's what Jared was thinking, and if I could talk to you about it afterwards, is all that land is up there and not enough frontage in the front here. That's what he was referring to, because he did talk to you after
And the
that.
other thing is that, while less frontage overall means more density, but if you're talking 2 lots side by side, each one could have 400 feet of frontage, but the 2 homes would still be, 100 feet apart, or whatever the setback is off the property line.
And there's no way we can word that, so it wouldn't be on, it would have to be on a new road and not an existing.
I don't see the
that'll believe you can say, you own this piece of land and because you bought it at this time, you're screwed. And this, you bought it new, you're okay.
I mean, most of my neighbors have large frontage.
Well, a perfect example, I think, of where it looks like there's almost no frontage is where the Woodisons are right next door to where Tim Scott lives now, I think, on Dundee. Those driveways aren't, I don't know, they're not more than 10 feet apart, maybe. So you'd think there's almost no frontage on both of those, but certainly the Woodisons' lot is plenty big. And I expect Tim's, where his mother's house had been, I don't know much about the shape of that lot.
On that particular one, they do have frontage on the other road on the other
Okay,
side.
yeah.
And I heard they
No,
may
right.
be developing a driveway out that way.
Okay.
Yeah, there's better one there. What if you have frontage in two towns?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Just not specified, it has to be in Jackson.
So did we decide anything about the 125 on the single lot?
I guess it's up for, we just had a discussion, up for vote. You want to change it?
Well,
I
we should have a
would
vote.
change it.
I hear a motion to make a change. I hear a second.
Second.
And the motion is to change it from 150 to 125, is that correct?
And that's for
Single
6 point, just for the single lot.
Right, I'd leave the cluster at 150 and, that alleviates some of the concern.
Yeah, I like that.
Anything else you overrode on? Okay, good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Great.
That's it.
Yeah, that does make more sense.
10.6.3, the little dot, the little I goes to 125 feet. Down below, the 10.6.3.
And the double I is going to have the language the same as.
Right down there, okay, that one, okay.
So the clustered housing group would still stay 150 because that's more homes.
Okay.
And then, Sarah, you were saying the number, the two I's mean?
Double I is instead of.
Oh, that's right.
The state standards, we'll just repeat the same language that's up
Okay,
in 3 I's up above. the
Yeah.
cluster. Just so that that's the same incentive.
yes.
Okay. Have we gone through everything?
I want to make a comment again that I don't like the fact that if somebody makes more than their income, they have to be out of the house in a year. I don't like that in there. I don't care if it's written up in the towns or the states or whatever it is. I don't like that.
So Kathleen, the way it
That's
is,
only rentals,
the
right?
way it is for rentals, so that, let's say it's a family of 3, and they moved in when their income was under 58,000. 58,300 or something is the max. At 135% of that 58,000, that's 20,000 more. They're earning 78,000 a year now. They have a year in which to find another place to live. If they're living in 1,000 square feet and they're earning 78,000 a year, they're not going to want to stay much longer. So it's trying to keep that place available to people who need. It wouldn't be somebody who owns a house getting kicked out. It would just be a rental needs to try to move within a year.
And to your,
Did it say rental on there?
Yes, it talks about tenant.
and to your point, yes, it can get really nasty when you have folks who are really under this kind of thing and they're living there and they call it home. And all of a sudden, something's improved because one of the members gets a better job or is going to school, graduated, and now is contributing to the income of the family, and all of a sudden, the household members have a much greater income earnings, and it's like, in the town which I live, we had somebody who created just this kind of example. He actually donated the entire property as part of his legacy, tied, and 28 units, and they're all affordable housing, and they're all tenants, and not owners. And yep, the town had to actually receive the materials in and have to actually ask people, they have to leave.
And who's going to be in
And
charge
I
of
made a
that saying
mistake.
you have to leave?
I made a mistake, it's not 78,000, it's 98,000, because 58,000 is 8% of the median income, and they're talking about 135% of the median income, so they moved in at earning 58,000, they're now earning 98,000.
Well, that's not going to happen around here.
Well, but that's the reality of it, and yes.
Where is this language?
It's currently in
This
10.8.3.
yeah. Remember those hippies who approved this back in 2008, you know? But
So-
Well, who's going to be in charge of telling you they have to leave? I mean, it's,
I think it says the select board, doesn't it?
it's those select people, and you know how good they are about personally.
When we have a development like that, if we ever do, then the select board is probably going to say, you know, this is too complex for us to manage, we need 3 volunteers who are going to make this work. And those volunteers, you know, just like the supervisors of the checklist or something or other, are once in a while going to be called upon to review the lease for something. And so if it's a 3-person household with an income of up to 58,000, and they move in, that's great. But then they get an income of 98,000, and somebody realizes that and says, you know,
Time for you to move on.
It's
And make
September.
that housing available to somebody who has a lower income. It's that simple.
and it's September, they have until the following September to find someplace else to live. We're not kicking them out, you know, unreasonably, but we're saying, hey,
Time to move on.
yeah, time to let somebody else move in here.
But the federal government, if you have an FHA loan, lots of times people will start out at 1% interest. As you make more money, the interest goes up. Once you make a certain amount, they force you to go through the bank, you know. You've got a choice, you either make your payments or you lose your house. And you have to, I mean, really, you have to refinance. It's just, so the federal government does it, and why couldn't you do it with rents? Or you'd have to go up on the rent. if
And
did.
people who move in there are gonna know that, you know,
Yeah.
geez, if I start making 90,000 a year, if I start earning 40,000 a year more than I am today, tough luck, I'm gonna have to move.
They make
Or
more.
good luck, I'm going to have to move.
oh, what if it's an elderly person? I mean, because this is also for elderly homes as well.
All right, what's the likelihood an elderly person's income level is going to change from year to year?
I don't know.
Geez, I'd likely move out
If you can find a way for my income level to improve dramatically, I'd like to know because
If I
I'd
can
like
hear
to sign up.
from here, I'll move to a different spot. And
We're
even
not
that's not
trying to
my income.
we're not trying to legislate social.
We'll be glad if we have that problem.
So on the back of that sheet with all the pretty blue and red, it says, do we want to just focus on these housing ideas and private roads? And we're not going to do the groundwater protection. That's what I'm assuming people were saying from last time. I think that's what I heard. But I just want to be sure.
I would like to defer, if we could, in order to keep our focus for the town meeting on just the housing.
And not change the numbers until,
Right, we'll do that later.
Right.
That's housekeeping.
So we keep it as simple, because I think these are, if we do it the way I think we can do it, this is real minimal, it's minimal change. And it shouldn't be anything when somebody looks at it to say it's, you know, drastic changes to our zoning ordinance. Because they aren't. It says we're going to allow for additional language to allow for maybe tweaking incentives. But to be honest, the kinds of things that you'd like to be able to do, we're just not able to do. And I mean, if you could have, you would have proposed like 20, 30, 40 more vacancies, right?
Well, if we could, if we could have, we would have proposed a short-term rental.
Yeah. And there are at least 4 or 5 other things that you'd like to have been able to talk about that we can't do because we're constrained from doing that as a town. And so I think these are really, unfortunately, small potatoes compared to what you'd like to be able to do. So if we can keep it there, but I think if we try to do the groundwater, it's just like totally different, and we don't have any real pressure on that. I
Our
went to the-
priority's gotta be housing.
Yeah, I mean, the original presentation is that we have 8 sites here that are kind of not really, you know,
Yeah,
we do have a salon that's near the river. And, yeah, I mean, that was one of the eight different opportunities that we had in town. It's like, okay, this isn't a big stop here.
You do not have Kearsarge and allergical
No.
dumping.
At least I hope not. Unless somebody's got some private thing going on
We
in the
don't have any
backyard.
industry.
Yeah. Either have you gotta go on.
Well, the epoxy from
Yeah, hey, people building chairs up the road here. So, are we agreed that we'll hold off on that?
yep.
And housekeeping adopted in 2016 looks like a good thing. And we'll leave the numbering alone.
Yeah, to like it.
Well, yeah, I think we can change the numbering when we redo the ordinance. We can move parking or something a little bit further back. I think it's smart. Steve's comment about section 8 being confused
Yep.
with the federal thing. I think we're smart to just
Leave it.
get out of that. problem.
Who's gonna know that?
Yeah, we'll just move parking into section 8 and have, something else. I think that'll work.
Yeah, I'd make that motion.
I'll second it.
To adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yay, nice, thank you. Thank you, everybody.